I love all the meeting and greeting. So nice. How wonderful to get to be at the museum on a Sunday afternoon and have points of connection with the art, with the people. It's just so wonderful to get to be together, and especially on such a fantastic occasion. So thank you all so much for being here. All of our special guests in the audience, our very special guests backstage. We're so grateful to all be together for this conversation between Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe and Deborah Willis. What an honor it is to welcome these absolute luminaries to the Getty. They are radiant, brilliant. Their work really shines a light on topics, on worlds we should all continue to explore, continue to think about. They shine a light not just on where we should be looking, but on how we should go there. In their photography and in their scholarship about photography, they proceed with curiosity, with empathy, with generosity. They didn't just notice that there was work that needed to be done, that needs to be done, but they did that work. I think a lot of us sort of acknowledge that there's problems. There's certainly a lot of problems in our world today, but they didn't just complain about those problems or mention them to their friends. They acted. They think, they create, they reflect, they make, they write, they listen, they listen, they listen. And this afternoon, we have the chance to listen. And what an incredible gift it is to get to listen to them, to learn from their insights. In order to listen, we should silence our cell phones. I'll give you the opportunity to do that now so that we can really be fully attuned to all that they have to share with us. I'll tell you a bit about what to expect from this afternoon. First, we will be looking at some work by Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe, and just really thinking about her incredible photography, her work as a historian, as an artist. And then we will be spending some time with the work of Deborah Willis. We'll then have the opportunity for a Q&A, and let's just try to keep it at questions as much as possible. I know a lot of us are huge fans of the work of both of these fantastic women, and we will have a time for a reception after, so we can have more conversational moments after. But for the Q&A, let's try to keep it tight. We do have a Zoom audience joining us, so hello to everyone who's online. I will be fielding some questions from the people that are joining us online, and there will be people here with microphones. So if you are in the audience and have a question, please wait for someone with a microphone to come before you ask your question. The galleries will also be open until 6:30 this evening, and so you'll have the opportunity to go and see the exhibition that both of their work is featured in, the fantastic exhibition, Photography in the Black Arts Movement, 1955 to 1985, curated by Deb Willis, is on view here until June 14th. And so you'll have the opportunity to see Jeanne's photos and Deb's really incredible curation. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe and Deb Willis.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you,
afternoon.
Maisie. It's really great to be here and to share this moment with all of you. I hear a little whistle. Is that something we need to worry about?
I think so.
Okay.
I think audio has it.
Okay, great. It's great to see, I think I can see most of you, but it's great to see all of you here today on a Sunday afternoon rather, but also to share this moment. It was an honor to receive the invitation from Maisie to share with my friend, Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe. We've known each other for over 50 years, just the other day. And it feels as if, photography has been a part of our storytelling for a very long time. And we're going to start off with the story of Jeanne and I. Both love South Carolina, love storytelling, but also we're going to start with her work and as a person who spent time in the Gullah and the Daufuskie Islands. And we're going to start with that story. And I'm not sure if this is going fast. Okay, great.
Roll the first video.
Okay.
By and by, it'll soon be done. We gonna soon be by and over. By and by, by and by, by and by, over sweet home, over sweet home.
Come on. What do you think? I know what I got my fork and I pen. I mean, y'all go to pen. I got my fork. You see, I got my chicken on now. I'm gonna turn my direction. I got right home. That's how much beer I have. When I get in meeting that day, and they was talking about the thing for people losing on in the car, and I tell the bit I'm so, oh God, no, but it's not them big old turkey. He said, you know, I probably out there, and I see them living very big ones. I said, you ask them people because they must have come in the pot.
Oh, brother, I hate to leave you here. Brother, I hate to leave you here. I got to go bid my weary soul. Got to go bid my weary soul. Got to go bid my weary. That's why I'm here to leave you. My sister, I hate to leave you here. My sister, hate to leave you here. My sister, hate to leave you here. I got to go bid my weary soul. I got bid my weary soul. I got bid my weary soul. That's why I hate to leave you here. My brother, I hate to leave you here. My brother, hate to leave you here. My brother, hate to leave you here. I got to go bid my weary soul. I bid my weary soul. I got to go bid my weary soul. That's why I hate to leave you here. Ooh, boy.
That
Thank you. Just want to, Jeannie's going to share that story, this story about Daufuskie, and then we're going to show another video. But to share this story, I really think it's important to think about how photographic images have had a profound part of our life as photographers, but also as we think about what it meant to hear sound, to see the women in this video of your still images. And I'm curious about why Daufuskie? Why did you start there?
I started with Daufuskie because of a project that I did when I was in college and decided to do my independent study in West Africa. And while there, I started visiting fishing villages on the west coast of Africa, and one was right on either side of the Cape Coast Castle in Cape Coast, Ghana, where the transatlantic slave trade took place. So being at that spot in college at that time and looking out at the ocean, it made a profound impression on me. And I started thinking about, knowing about the fishing villages in South Carolina and Georgia on the Sea Islands. I said to myself, I got to go there and explore that area and to make that connection for myself. And in 2 years after I graduated from college, I did make it to the South Carolina Sea Islands until I came back and met Verda May Grosvenor, who was a culinary anthropologist, as she called herself. We were both friends with Verda May, and brilliant writer. And she said, did you go to Defusky Island? And I said, what's Defusky Island? And she said, you haven't been to South Carolina unless you've been to Defusky Island. And she was absolutely right. Defusky Island was the only island in the South Carolina and Georgia Sea Islands that did not have a bridge linking it to the mainland. So the only way you could visit Defusky was by boat. And that made the island very unique. This was in 1977 when I first made my trip there, and so development had not come to the island yet. And what Verda did was introduce me to someone who's become like a lifelong friend, because this is a lifelong project, to Emory Campbell, who probably has done more for the Gullah Geechee culture than anyone else. And that was how I was introduced to Defusky Island, which I think made the difference between being accepted in the community and possibly not being accepted in the community. And it was Emory who introduced me to people, and it took a while for me to get to know everyone. There were times when I couldn't pick up my camera. You just had to be comfortable and make other people feel comfortable. But I visited the island for a period of about 5 years, on and off of the island, 2-3 weeks at a time. I'd stay with Susie Smith and her family. And over time, I noticed that the Gullah language, which you heard in the first video, Johnny Hamilton, Deacon Johnny Hamilton, was singing Sweet By and By. And then you heard Bertha Robinson, daughter of Blossom Robinson, who was the fierce matriarch of Defusky Island. Bertha was telling you that someone stole her turkeys, but she was telling you that in Gullah. And there were times when I first arrived on the island when no one would speak the Gullah language around me. And over time, I could tell when people were becoming more comfortable with my presence on the island. And I owe a lot of that to Susie Smith and to Emory Campbell. But the language was so musical, and it was so beautiful. I was known as a Furcumia, and the Defuskians are known as Furbinyas. And a Furbinya in Gullah means you've been from the island for a long time. Mm-hmm. And a Furcumia means you are new to the island. So I was a Furcumia.
Do you want to start with the video, the second video?
Second video
right,
would
and
be
then we'll
the second
talk about
video.
Some images.
Yes, we can talk about images. And also Emory Campbell, who introduced me to the island, is interviewed and gives you a lot of wonderful information about Defusky Island. So meet Emory Campbell.
I remember when we went over there on that speedboat that morning, and boy, we got to the Defusky dock, and who was sitting up there? James Williams in an Ostrom car. I mean, we couldn't have even scripted that better. I don't know if you remember the car breaking down. The battery cable or something had gotten loose, and we were stranded. But the last house we went to probably was Johnny Hamilton. He lived back over in the really remote part of the island. He had a house with a kitchen away from the house. The Fusky was sparse then, and oh gosh, nobody hardly visited the Fusky, but y'all were everybody embraced strangers on the Fusky as always. When I came back from the north after about 5 years, the first place I was assigned was the Fusky. It conjured up all of my childhood images because Hilton Head had changed. Mm-hmm. We had telephone here, we had what we call running water, indoor plumbing. We had very few snakes by then, had left the yard and the surrounding. Mm-hmm. And so the Fusky to me was a reincarnation of my childhood. And I could just, identify with just about everything on the Fusky, as opposed to Hilton Head has changed so much that very little identity with my childhood here now.
The Lord, the shepherd, I ain't going to want towards her. He got me for little in that green field. He got me side the waterway in the motor. He built up my soul. He lead me, and it's your righteous path for your name. Yeah, do I walk through this your valley where death going all wrong? I ain't going to fear nothing special evil, for he ain't there with me. He rod, he staff, he give me comfort. Oh, then it take this your terrible spread them out. Why, my enemy dear right there. Oh, he give me plenty in the night me head with all till me cup to run over. Surely, goodness and mercy, why be behind me all me days and things like that. Oh, and I go and did it in this your house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen.
At one time, it meant that you were less than mainstream America, that you were outside of the mainstream, and that was not good, because in order to, quote unquote, make progress, you had to be mainstream. You had to speak like mainstream America, you had to eat like them, you had to dress like them, and everybody strived for that. Everybody strived to be mainstream. We've changed that. Diversity is now embraced. And so to be Gullah now means that you are part of this diverse world, and that you have something to offer. You have a different food way to offer, you have a different speech to offer, you have words from West Africa that you can tell people about. You have a real composite culture that you can live and in a way that's comfortable to you, to yourself. And so you have a kind of a self-identity that you can be proud of. That's what we think it means. I mean, that's what it means to me now.
Father, dear heaven, Father, the honor name, the kingdom come, thy will done on this earth like it done in heaven. Please, you, give it this your dear, you daily bread for them. And please forgive we, God, for all the trespass and things we done do. Forgive them. What done come against we? Did we? Not going into temptation, but take we way for evil, for doing the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you.
The important aspect for me is a time thinking about those of us who are now looking at the archive and Black visual culture during that time, why Philip and I felt it was important to include your work in the exhibition was because that search that you had in looking at the past, making it ever present, but also how did the interplay between representation of what it meant for us to know about this experience. And the spirituality that I see in these works, has a lot to do with the water, the voices, but those images that you created. You talk about posing and just finding those moments when you found Susie or Blossom and those moments when you decided to make images.
That's a good question because there were always images to be taken. But one of the things that was so wonderful for me as a storyteller and trying to capture these incredible moments was learning how to always be present. That living on Defusky, spending time on Defusky, you were compelled to just be there. There were no other distractions, and so you could really focus on the experience. Emery would tell me that the saying was, you fall under the spell of the low country, and I was under the spell that only because the people of the island shared that experience with me, and it didn't come quickly, but knowing that this culture, that change was coming to the island, and knowing the history of the island, and knowing and spending time with the people and watching Fast Man, who would always predict the weather by drawing lines in the dirt on the roads. And Deacon Hamilton, who we always, counted on to pray in church. And Mrs. Jones, who had contracted polio when she was young, and so she walked around with a crutch, but she was the school teacher at the one-room schoolhouse at the Defusky Island school.
What about the guy off the boat? I love that image of the man and his tie is flying.
That is Deacon Hamilton.
That's Deacon Hamilton.
Yes,
Okay.
It's called Departures.
Departures. And where was he headed or going to at that time?
There were no stores on Defusky. It took a long time, and through the encouragement, Emery had to literally encourage the people on Defusky to bring a grocery store, onto the island because they loved the island the way that it was. But they were convinced, they didn't want any changes there, but they were convinced this was something that they did need. And Deacon Hamilton was getting off of the boat coming from Hilton Head Island, which is the neighboring island just across Calabogue Sound, the water from Defusky Island. So that's how they would get food. When you graduated from school, the kids would go to school on the mainland. And this, this transportation was how you got on and off of the island. The boat that you see here is Jake's speedboat. And I would often ask Jake to pick me up at Harbortown Dock to pick me up and take me over to Defusky if I was coming at an odd time in the day.
How long did it take?
About 45 minutes. It was a long time to be in a boat that size.
Any
But-
safety net there? Or?
No, no, just a really solid grip on the side of the boats.
And what about the fishermen that you photographed?
Yeah, James Murray and his
I don't know if it's
and
here.
his father would allow me to go out on the boat with them around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. You'd have to get up to go out with the fishermen. And it was an honor to be out there with them, and a very magical experience. I think one of the things that, there were a lot of things, two things that I would say that I learned from the culture is about being present and appreciating what you have, where you are at that moment, and living in that moment. I learned a lot about that from them. And the other is the first book was published in 1982 that had 68 black and white photographs in it. And 25 years later, I decided to do a 25th anniversary edition because in those days we had contact sheets. It wasn't digital photography, and going back and seeing the contact sheets, I was also 25 years older. And so you see the world differently. And I saw Defusky differently 25 years later, and included more images of the children. I was a mother 25 years later. I wasn't a mother when I first went there. So there were a lot of things that I learned as a result of spending time on the island and from the people and the friendships. So I think I answered your question, but I think
why
overall,
photography? Let's think about the time. Jeannie and I graduated about the same time. I graduated from Philadelphia College of Art, and you, Cooper Union, which I always wanted to go to Cooper Union. But
you did just fine.
but just curious, why photography? What happened in Chicago in your life that
That's a
drew you to
really
this?
good question, and it's a loaded one. But I think if you notice in this exhibition that photography and the Black Arts movement, there are quite a few photographers from Chicago that you selected to be in this exhibition. And there's a straight line between Chicago and the South. And there's something about the storytelling, because I think one of the things that we learned in college was we were seeing all these images and we were hearing all these stories, but we weren't seeing and hearing our own. And that's exactly what prompted me to come up to the Schomburg, where Deb was working at the time, in the photo research department and photo library. So we didn't know of any Black women photographers. And that troubled me, and I found out it troubled Deb. And I went to her and said, did you know that Islanda Good Robeson, Paul Robeson's wife, was a photographer? And she was this brilliant economist, and she did all of these things and took all these pictures, you know, with Paul Robeson when they were traveling parts of the world. And Deb went to the back and said, wait, I have something I want to show you. I don't remember what year this was, but it was way back. And she came out with a picture of Joyce Wilson, who was this young African-American woman photographer with a Leica around her neck. And I said, Deb, where did you find that? And the rest is history.
It was really important for us at the same time, because here's Jeannie, this is the cover of the book, to think about what's happening in the world like today. And Jeannie was also photographing in South Africa.
I did.
And in the South. And we wanted to tell stories. We knew it was missing. I love this image where you are searching and deciding and editing, and that moment when thinking about that time period. We didn't have a community of peers to talk about these images, to talk about these stories, but we knew that, you know, Jeannie was making images, making self-portraits, and this is a piece, one of the shows, I was curating a show on self-portraits, and to think about women in self-portraiture, and Jeanne, of course, includes, her husband, Arthur Ashe, in this image from the 70s. Here I am in the 80s.
Buried in books.
Kwame Brathwaite was in my office at the Schomburg, and he made this image, and it's just amazing to think about when Maisie asked, do you have any photographs of you in the Schomburg, in the archives, and working through that time period. But in the 70s, we were looking and still reading the Sweet Flypaper of Life, the Roy DeCarava and Langston Hughes. We were reading and spending time with Gordon Parks's Choice of Weapons. But also, Joe Crawford created the Black Photographers Annual because there were missing stories about Black photographers, Black image makers. And so this is the time when we were coming of age in photography, but also looking for ways to tell stories, but to write about these stories that were missing. And when Jeanne worked on that part of the Viewfinders, which was just an amazing collection of images, I started working through a number of projects and looking to expand this history that had images of looking for Verna May's mother's on the cover of Picturing Us. Verna May talked to me a lot about what was missing in her life, missing with photography. She said the photographs were in a shoebox, but the storytelling was the important aspect of her life. So keeping these moments ever present in my life, Jeanne and I talked over the years about South Africa, creating the panel about South Africa, Art Against Apartheid, that no one's guiding us through this archive or giving us a blueprint, but we wanted to make sure that these images and these stories were told. So here I am, Schomburg, working, and again, where we spend our time, just being girls, having laughter, having fun, but then also asking the questions, asking the difficult questions. It was hard to find the images, but also find the support. We did all of this without any major support. We were just kind of making it happen. And I rarely talk about my photographs, and so I'm having an opportunity.
Please
Thanks to Maisie and this Jeanne at this time. But to think about my interest in photography, began as a young girl in Philadelphia. But just recently, photographer Ed Prussia, he lives here in California, and he stopped at at New York University. He was attending a memorial service for Clyde Taylor. And he asked one of the people who works at NYU if this image where it says "do not," is that Deborah Willis? And of course, the person was much younger, and she's, "Oh, I don't know." But when she called me and said, "There's someone here who has a photograph he'd like to give to you, and is that you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can't see me, I haven't changed a bit." But it was the time, it was Duke Ellington's funeral and at St. John's Cathedral. And it was just an amazing moment for me with my camera. I'm still an undergraduate student, but I was determined to attend the funeral and photograph all of the people who were there walking through. I grew up, this is a family home. I grew up in North Philadelphia, and home has always been central. And the connection with Jeanne and I overlaps in many ways. So this is a home that I grew up in, I photographed a couple years ago. But recently, my sister found an album, not an album, but a yearbook, my dad's yearbook when he graduated from high school. Never knew this yearbook existed, never knew that his passion was photography, as he wrote in the yearbook, but also his passion was traveling. And here we see Dad on the right here and his image, thinking about my father and the stories that, like it says on the record, but thinking about his moment in photography guided me in my interest in photography, because he always had a 2 1/4, a Rolleiflex. He made photographs of my sister and I, my mom. He was then it was a paper hanger, but he was interior decorators in the language of the day. But he photographed us, and he used our images as calendar images to promote his work. He gave me a brownie when I was little, and the central image is the image I made as a young girl, 7 years old, with a camera, because I was interested in photography and my father's interest in photography. My father was a policeman as well, and here is a photograph of my father at the Italian market in South Philadelphia. And then my father had 9 brothers and sisters. They played cards, they had a great time. And here I'm there photographing them playing cards, and Dad's in the tie. My Uncle Richard, who was the preacher, is reaching to being in charge of the moment. But capturing these images guided me into the storytelling aspect of what it meant to grow up with a father who was interested in photography, but never knew that was his passion. But he always photographed us. Here I am on the phone, and he said that he was tired of me on the phone. He photographed me on the phone, and every time I was on the phone, he would make a photograph, and then punish me for spending too much time on the phone. But looking at the image today, my mom was a hairdresser. She had a beauty shop, and here's the Apex Beauty Shop school that she attended, and the pride of the family. We see the religious images and the images in Fusky, the sense of accomplishments and pride, and these are some of the images. When I was an undergraduate at Philadelphia College of Art, I asked where were the Black photographers. I wrote to Barbara Blondeau, who was the chair of the department. I found the list to give to her. I wrote a proposal for a 6-month research project. And here I am with Ann Tucker, who was then my teacher.
Mine too.
Yours too, right?
Two different schools, but
I know she was teaching in Philadelphia and New York at the same time. Mm-hmm. And here, we were having this moment. One of the first photographs I made when in Philadelphia as an art student was South Street. And here, thinking about migration, this is barbecue, North Carolina barbecue store underneath. But the fact is that there are men and women looking out the window, protecting and looking at their children as they play, looking at the scenes of the day. And so the theater of the street is something that I was interested in, but also in families. When I was a student, my teacher told me that I was taking up a good man's space, a man. 18 men were in the classroom. And he said, all I'm going to do, pointing to me, there were 3 women in the class, is get pregnant, and a good man could have been in that seat. And it just really silenced me. I was shocked because my desire to become a photographer was as a 7-year-old. And to hear this man tell me that I could not, and even if I wanted to be a mother, he wanted to shame me as a woman who desired to be a mother. So my husband and I, we made self-portraits of my belly over the time period. Here is some of the early portraits I made. Hank, Dad, during the 70s, our neighbor who had the tailor shop, I made images from that community. I also was fascinated with stories and women who shared stories. So there was a Haitian exhibition in 1980 at the Brooklyn Museum. And so I was involved with the research of the community. So listening to stories, growing up in a beauty shop, I loved the care that happened during this time period. And I constantly made images of women in beauty shops or in search of a guided life of care. And so here she's asking a question about her desire for her love, will he stay? And so cards are being read in that relationship. My husband is from Florence, South Carolina. We traveled often, same time you were there. So here, attending funerals, and these are some of the images from my experience in South Carolina. Here in California, but also walking through the streets in the 70s, with friends and students. I also went to West Africa. So we'd gone to Ghana at that time period. And the experience of going to Ghana at this time also guided me in thinking about how photography was central in storytelling, in the ways that I wanted to experience how communities documented the younger people who had a desire to focus on their lives. And so here in probably, what year were you there in?
74.
Okay, so
You were there before?
I was there in 1970.
Right.
So the fact is that these are the images I made during that time period.
Amazing.
Looking for a way to tell our stories, thinking about women in the marketplace, to think about the women who controlled the experience of the community, the economic growth of the community is because of the women in the marketplace. I also photographed in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and photographing some of the homes there that were left. I was looking for shotgun houses to photograph. And here is some of the images I photographed there, as well as in South Africa, and just finding ways where women and men would paint their homes to find the sense of beauty. This is in New Orleans. I had my shotgun project, and one guy said to me, he says, why you Northerners, and this is how he presented it, romanticize about shotgun houses. We couldn't get out the house without our grandmother, our mother, finding us slipping through one way door or the other. But I said, but the beauty of the shotgun house and the community of it. So I photographed interior and the exterior of the house. I also photographed a time with my dad using his photographs. I made a quilt called Daddy's Ties with my mother and my sister after he passed away. So today I'm interested in the female body. I'm interested in how women desire beauty, and beauty has been about their sense of self, sense of representation, and this boxing has also been an interest of mine as well. So these are some of the images of the ring gals, and here just the positive images that they presented over time. Interested in the way that the boxers also presented and how I'm interested in their stories being presented at a time frame. I'm also photographing in Brooklyn at the gyms in Brooklyn. Here is a gym in Bed-Stuy. And as I mentioned, home. This is in Eatonville, Florida. I was fascinated with the clothesline. The way that the colors of the clothes, the way that they're placed on the clothesline, and the stories that are told to me as workers. These are workers who are laborers, and how they care for their clothes and cleaning. And so this is a part of my interest in home life. This is, again, the way that Black women and men in rural areas as well as in the city are documenting and painting their homes. This is Miss Nandi's house. She was the candy store lady, and she was the historian of the community. She would invite young women and girls and boys in the community to give them opportunities, history lessons. And here we see how important her history, American history, African American history, African history, was to tell to the young people in the community and give them candy at the same time. So here, and we see images of Dr. King, but also all of the young people who lived in the neighborhood sent photographs and shared the photographs of their graduation, their children's graduation, but they maintained the life of respect of Mrs. Nandi over a time period. So here, I just wanted to document her wall. And these are some images I'm just going to share here of Carrie Mae Weems in the beauty shop in Eatonville, researching Zora Neale Hurston's story. My mom this is a friend of hers who attended Apex with her. This is a woman in her 80s working, in 90s, having her shampoo. The sense of care that I grew up with. This is my mom in the chair. And the way that I think about this story is the rules that we grew up in beauty shops. Limit your calls to 3 minutes. You're here to do work. Children should not run through the beauty shop. So that sense of community and storytelling. This is a photograph, my self-portrait I photographed in North Carolina. Wanted to see what it meant for me to take a self-portrait, but also not know what's happening, but then see the beauty of the woman who is shampooing my hair and the signs that, yes, we accept tips, just guiding the sitter to remind that we need support. And these are images that I made in Harlem. I have a project called Sundays in Harlem. This is Hank with then his girlfriend, Rujeko, and now his wife on 135th Street. Just different church scenes in Harlem. Street baptism in Harlem. Just a wonderful 115th Street where the fire station is used as the spiritual sense of this for the street baptism. And just ending with just images that I just decided I wanted to show and share with this experience of not having an opportunity to show my work over time. But in this exhibition, we had an opportunity to reach out to friends that we knew whose dads passed away. This is Ernest Russell's photograph. I reached out to his daughter, Legacy Russell, and she shared a number of photographs that I would have loved to have included in the exhibition. But here is, advertising in the 70s, style of beauty, Duke, the hairstyle. Did not know that he made these images during the time period. Having Corinne Simpson looking at the self-portraits that she made over a time period. She made a number of self-portraits. And Ming Smith, just imagining the life of Josephine Baker and what it meant for her to create the self-portrait. And Carrie Mae Weems, just the joy that I see in her mother at work and home and other stories. But this is the same joy that I see in the images that you shared from Dufusky. The sense that, the black and white image, the joy that what it meant for women and the men in that community over time. And also Lou Draper's image of Fannie Lou Hamer, just the road as she walks down the road, the path from her home, and the way that Lou Draper, who was a mentor to both of us, to honor his memory. And here, just other images over time that see children. And then Roland Charles here had the Black Gallery here in LA. Another, to think about the beauty shop as a subversive space where he's documenting a classroom. And he also has the poster that was used by SNCC members over a time period to get the community to vote, to think about how do you teach citizenship classes? Where can you teach them? Can't teach them in public spaces. So, of course, is the beauty shop and the barber shop, so that the Black people in the community could have an opportunity to vote. And the way that Herb makes this image, where just a night image, you see a young child with a white dress running down the steps. And how do we capture beauty in this community at this time period of Harlem and in Chicago and in LA, and just we wanted to tell a story. We wanted to look at a young couple on a bus that we can see the photographer also is looking at young love and having that experience to not only think about the struggle that we had in terms of the battles we've had in the 70s, but also to think about the private moments, the moments of when young girls who were not allowed to go in a restaurant, into a store to buy clothing, to buy a dress for school, but then to think that these are the same young girls and who marched with their mothers and protested with their mothers and to relax on a Sunday afternoon for ice cream. This is talking about how do we document Black arrests? And this is a way to see Black arrests documented and preserved through the lens of Doris Derby, and another way of thinking about support in documenting Cecil Williams, a photographer who's in his late 80s now, who's setting up a museum in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And this is where we can see the exchange of where women help other women as they're voting, as they prepare to vote. She's taking care of the baby. Those moments when we think about how do we have that exchange. And, having Gordon Parks in the exhibition was central. As you notice, the image with the proposal that I had for my instructor to request to work and on a book or a research project on Black photographers, and Gordon Parks was one of the male photographers that I reached out to. Couldn't find any women photographers, but I knew that Gordon responded right away and invited me to his house. And Moneta Sleet, he was working also at Johnson Publishing and in the Time Life building. And the two of them invited me to their spaces to think through. And Richard Saunders, another photographer I reached out to, he was working for the USIA. And to discover this image and to see a classroom where Malcolm X is teaching young girls in the classroom, this at the Natural History Museum, to include some of these stories that were in the archives that did not circulate over a time period, but also how Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe is looking at the beauty of home life, but also to preserve images of the soldiers, pictures of young soldiers, but the piano, the flowers, the canning of food, the preservation of life. And that's something that we, Philip Brookman and I, looked through, the doily on this image. The things that we grew up with and wanted to share, we found this sense of beauty. The Bob Fletcher, this is another, the seriousness of the woman who's, okay, you're going to write your name here. You're going to vote. Cigarette hanging out her mouth. Yes, I'm doing it. Handbag under her arm. We're going to take this together. So we're pushing this. We know we have to vote. We know we have, and it continues to today. And here's Leroy Henderson's photograph where, we see this kind of barrier with Angela Davis when she's just released from prison. And then they create a makeshift bulletproof barrier. This is homegrown, in terms of the community. And the beauty that he's able to capture this image. And now I see it circulating on IG, and he's not credited, sadly. But the aspect that we know the importance of how do we think about these images, how do we preserve our memories of these stories, and not only the struggle, but also the beauty of all of these moments. The beauty of advertising, again, with this image here of Barbara Dumetz, This is an image where we see beauty of everyday life. Here is a young girl with a black doll, and now we see craft using this image to show that, Black life, we care about Black life. You you can use our cheese, this kind of moment to care in everyday moments, and these are in advertising. And so these are moments that we also wanted to share in the stories. We also wanted to include the photographers in the UK and the Caribbean, as well as in West Africa. Again, how beauty was central. This is Nottingham, Horace Ove, during the carnival. Just the style. We see this quiet moment, but I hear the sound in this image when I think about the sound in yours as well. So these are, this is another one that I found here in California. Kwame Brathwaite has a gallery here, and I had never seen this image. And I knew Kwame Brathwaite since 1968. He guided me when I was interested in photography, and just the fact that he used the spools as we process black and white 2 1/4 camera, making a portrait. This is with a 2 1/4 camera, but also making a portrait of a necklace. And how do we think about the beauty of photography and documenting this moment? Here again, Anthony Barboza, these moments of Carla Williams, who's a California-based photographer. The prepare yourself for a rally, prepare yourself for a party, you have the rollers in your hair. So these are the moments of comfort. Frank Stewart, again, we see the decay of the neighborhood in Harlem, the buildings, but he's also finding this Easter Sunday moment with these beautiful hats, these group of women leaving church, and he's documenting these moments. So we see these moments in the exhibition, which really just warmed my heart seeing the crowd today, but also having Betty Saar, her story, to think about how she preserved not only the images, but the objects that held on to the beauty, the gloves from family members, the objects the jewelry. And so when we think about the stories of our lives and the stories that we shared with the images from Defusky, and the fact that here is 25 years later, I'm reprinting Reflections, and then 25 years later,
With
Defusky Island. And these are the stories that we wanted to share. We wanted to share just our personal images of our lives, but also the images that we searched and researched and told stories about and found and created a new avenue for scholars to do research, as well as for communities to broaden their stories about their lives outside of the stereotypical images of Black life.
Can I wanted to mention that when I saw this exhibition, Photography in the Black Arts Movement, and you mentioned Gordon Parks. Gordon Parks said that the camera was his weapon of choice. And I think I'm thinking about the title of the show that you've curated with Philip. And it really does show how picking up a camera then was a way of fighting back. It was a way of storytelling to say, we won't be silenced. And I think that comes right out of that period of 1955 to 1985. So in that sense, for photographers in that period, camera was a weapon of choice. And I have a question for you. How many books have you published? I saw her son, Hanky, where Deb was being honored. I think it was at the Ford Foundation in New York. And Hank started showing pictures of Deb's books. One of your first books, and then the next book, and then the next book, and it just kept going on, and the next book. And I just remember there must have been 60 books, Deb.
No.
There were so many books that Hank showed picture after picture after picture, and we were all stunned because we never look at the accumulation of the work that you've done and all of the historical context that you've given to the culture, and that it's not just you. It's pointing out all the people who have done this work, and it's important, and you continue to do this. We owe a debt of gratitude to Deb Willis.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's true. I think you can see how generative this is, and how understand why they've both been so influential on so many of us. Thank you so much for that. I'll just say that we have a profile on Barbara Demetz, who was shown here, who's included in the exhibition in a current issue of the Getty magazine, and we have a fantastic article on Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe in an upcoming issue of the Getty Research Journal, which is a free journal from the Getty, so that'll be out in September. And of course, as we've heard, Deb always has projects going on, and her exhibition, as I mentioned, closes June 14th. I have some questions from our online audience while you're starting to think. If you start to get ready, so look, there we go, hands raised already, perfect, so be ready. I'll start here. Jeanne, what similarities did you see between Tefusky and Africa? You mentioned that it was the sort of looking out to the ocean that was calling to you in these fishing villages in both places. One of our online audience members wanted to ask what similarities you noticed when you were in both spaces.
Definitely, the fishing villages was, it's about, fishing is about feeding oneself, feeding one's family, and selling what you catch. And I think that was something that, to me, was obvious in West Africa, but also in South Carolina. And of course, the fishing industry in South Carolina, because of industrial factories and so forth, it eventually, kind of ruined that environment for them. But still, that the use of the land and the water, and the fishing as being able to feed your family, that was one. And the uniqueness of having to maintain their culture, not being influenced by the mainland. And that was something that became, because going to Africa was the first time I had left America's shores, and just seeing all these people of color wherever you look, up and down the street, and then going to Tefusky, and it was the same. So it was a real eye-opener, both experiences.
And, just as similar, in researching, we found out that the Peace Corps sent people, some of the Peace Corps volunteers, to the Sea Islands because of the temperature was very similar, the ground was very similar, and they had their early training on the Sea Islands. So that's,
to prepare them
to
for
move
their journeys,
to work in Africa. So that was another aspect of it when I see the storytelling with the food village.
Sure.
Hello, testing. Is it working? Yep. Oh, hey guys. Sorry. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that the exhibition is one of my favorites all time. Miss Willis, one of my favorites all time. I was saying how I used to sneak in your class at NYU and just kind of sit there. I was in residency and fellowship in New York, and would have come to a few classes. And so thank you.
You should say your name too.
Oh, I'm Byron Young.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Young. But anyway, I wanted to ask: is there kind of a way that your emotional world impacts how you shoot in a day? Like, do you know? Could you say, like, looking at a picture, like, oh, I was in a particular mood that day because of the way I was shooting? Like, I guess, could you express a little bit about how your emotional world impacts how you shoot? And I'm also curious, are there times when you're looking at your work and you are kind of stunned at it? Like, wow, that really moves me in a special way that I maybe don't even remember when I shot it, but wow, it really moves me.
What was the last part you said?
Oh, that you'd be kind of moved by the work in a special way that maybe you didn't even feel when you were shooting it, but after looking at it, you're really like maybe blown away in a kind of new way looking at the work in retrospect.
So both.
Yeah,
Both of you.
I think for me, it's all about emotion. It's about a response, a call and response. And that, it's not just from the head, it's also from the heart. When you photograph, something else I was going to say about that. Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, I think so as well. I love stories, and I grew up in a house full of stories. And, I'm still growing up. And, when, visiting Dr. Joy Simmons, her house and the way that she was able to collect young artists during her early collecting years. The story of discovery is something that I love, and I really wanted to photograph her telling the story, but it's the emotion that I felt of documenting home, and that's been central for me. And I didn't realize until I started looking at the contact sheets when everyone's saying, "Oh, when are you going to show your work? When are you going?" And then I'm invited for a couple of shows, and I'm excited about having the opportunity to show my work. But then I noticed that I have a closet project. I'm photographing people's closets, and the stories that I'm finding out about what people preserve in their closets, the clothes that they can't wear anymore, but they still have them.
And we're all laughing because you're not coming to my closet.
And I think that's the emotion that, the sense of love, and that's in their closets. That's about love. And that's something that, collecting is about love, but also the appreciation. And how do we represent love in the way that it's to make it tangible, but then also you step back and exhale when you think about Miss Nandi's house. I mean, she had I remember the candy store lady when I was a kid going to Sunday school. And I'd slip out of Sunday school and buy my little candy and slip back into church. But she was also about loving her community and preserving the memory of the historical people who died over time, who were, civil rights activists, but also the educators of the community. So I think that sense of emotion, as Jeanne described, it is an emotional aspect. To decide one year, I decided I wanted to photograph. My mom was still doing hair. She's like in her, late 70s and
she lived
80s.
To be 100.
Right, and she lived to be 100. And she was still working and enjoying work, and loving it. And that's something that I witnessed. And I said, Mom, I want to photograph, they still called themselves girls, their girlfriends, and to document them working. And they were so happy that, here I am coming from New York to document them. The bodybuilders I photographed over a time period. It's a different aspect of, I think that's my in search of love. It's something that I've been just kind of documenting because the public has, and the media has basically denied our sense of documenting our love of our community. When I started working on one book on the Civil War soldiers, I was fascinated that the love stories of the people who were enslaved, what they shared about their husbands, their wives, their children, but that's what kept them alive, is love. And that story is overlooked in our history books of Black love in the 19th century. And it's not just struggle, but it is about love. And I think, thank you for that Beautiful question.
It is a great question.
Yeah.
And it's about subjectivity.
Mhm.
I mean, photographs are subjective. Some people, take a formalist approach to photography, but we take a subjective approach. And I think that that's something that has been good. It also, when you're doing subjective photography, and to specifically address part of your question, there's always an element of surprise in making a photograph. I loved it in the dark room because the whole process of photography, what you might not see at that moment because you are connected to something subjectively, comes back to you in the dark room when you see that image start to appear in the developer. And it's a magical, magical moment. It really is.
And also in the archive, when you go back
Yes,
in
and definitely in the archives.
to
Absolutely.
do the research. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We have time for one more question there in the back, and then one more question. And then I want to remind everyone that we have a reception and book signing as well, and that the galleries are open until 6:30. So one more question in the back, and then one here, and then we'll have our reception and book signing. Please, in the back.
Hi, my name is Margot. I first want to just thank you, Deborah Willis. I am a community photographer in collaboration with Photography and Black Arts. And Maisie Harris, I want to thank you for your generosity. You have truly paved the way for us. And I had to drive all the way out here today to tell you that personally.
Oh, thank
My
you.
father told me when I was in my 20s to put the camera down. I'm in my 50s now. He said, nobody will hire you because you are Black and you're a woman. And I picked it up years later, but the opportunity to work in collaboration, this was an honor to me. And it means a lot, and I had to come here and tell you personally, thank you.
Oh, thank you so
Thank
much.
you for doing what you do. You have paved the way for us. And I've been able to talk to the young people to encourage them to keep going. And that's what I came to say. Thank you, Maisie Harris.
This is the LA Commons.
Yes.
Tell us when your opening is. Please, there was a sign at
Yes.
the beginning, but please tell us about your opening.
June 18th at Aura, O-R-A, in Limerick Park. There's an opening exhibit in collaboration with Photography and Black Arts. And we honor you, I have to say that, from 6 to 8 p.m.
Great.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
And what's the end date for it? How long is it going to be up?
I believe it's going to go until the 14th of July.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah.
Hello, hello. Hello, thank you. My name is Greg Hatton. I'm a photographer here based in Los Angeles. And I have a question centered mainly around the fact that in this day and age, we're like inundated with images. You know, social media is everywhere. We see so many different things. Gordon Parks did say, you know, the camera was his choice of weapons. And the question that I have is like, while we're so inundated with this imagery, what can you say to the sustaining power of photography? And do we need to learn how to understand more or engage more with the photographers to get the most out of what the work means, to pass through the noise and get the gist of it? Like, how do you see that in this day and age?
I didn't hear, how do you see?
How do we see the sustaining purpose of photography and these stories that exist in the images while we're so like bombarded with imagery that might not have that much meaning, or maybe it does, you know, like how do we like continue to move through and champion what's really real about photography?
Well, I see photography as text, and I always will see it as sustaining the visual culture. We are, I don't see it bombarded because I teach photography, so I have to encourage my students and their parents to come to study photography because it's really about storytelling. And I just to think about Doris Derby, I knew her during her lifetime for maybe 25, 30 years. She's been included in a couple of book projects, but I never knew the photographs that she made of the young girls on the porch eating ice cream. Do you know how important it is to see that? just to see not someone being denigrated, someone who's being chastised, but someone who's young girls who are just sitting, having a moment of joy at a Black store in the South, to see that they're supporting that sense, but then that sense, as I mentioned before, of rest. You know, how do we preserve rest and how do we make photographs of it? So I think that we know that the images, as we talk about the advertising images of the 70s, when the advertising companies decided to go into our Black magazines and start using some of the images to tell the stories, to attract the Black buyer, the Black consumer. It continues on. Every day we know that Instagram has numerous images about Black life, but there are also the images of just joyful images from the horrific experience of everyday life that they're experiencing because of what's going on in the world today. So I think it's important to see photography as text. And, you know, we can read it in different ways, but just to reimagine our lives that represents a daily life when we see, you know, of course, the death of so many young people today, what's happening to them in their education. If they could see more representative images of Black life that shows the beauty of our life and our culture, is something that I'm hopeful for in the way that I curate and I make images, and that's something I'd like to see more and more. I don't know, Jeanne.
Well, I think that was very well said, Deb. I think you can't have too many pictures. I mean, in Deb's book on the Black Civil War soldier, it was all about having your photograph taken. Frederick Douglass talked about having your photograph taken and what it meant to the Black community even back then. That it was just really very important. So you can't have too many images.
Right. But that's the point that you made. That's, you know, just thinking about the Black Civil War soldiers. Like, I didn't know that they existed until I started my research, but they knew that that photograph, that when they stood in front of that backdrop with their uniforms, that it wasn't just for that moment. They knew that there was a future. They saw a Black future when they looked at that camera lens. And that's what I think it's really important to think about. I'm glad you brought that up, is that sense of importance of Black people in the 19th century who stood in front of the camera. You know, some of the soldiers knew that they might not survive that awful Civil War. Some of them actually died with photographs in their hand, in their pockets, looking at their family members. But the fact is that they were photographed, and they knew how important it was for them to be photographed, and the photographs survived, just to remind us of that fight and battle that they had over a lifetime for freedom.
Thank you. There's the question that was asked basically because a lot of newer photographers come in and they always hear like there's too many people doing this, or you can't, you know, you won't be recognized. But I agree with you wholly, like everything that you said, both of you.
Right. Russell Fredericks just did a project in Brooklyn. If you have a chance to look online, his also is, he continues to create images with a community lab. There's so many stories. I meet photographers daily, and I wish I could put them all in the projects that I have, but it's maintaining the archive is important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you can see from the photos, from the questions, there's so much to connect with here and in the exhibition. Please do, but thank you. That helped answer also one of the online questions. So thank you to our online, I don't know where to look when I say this. Thank you to our online audience for joining us. Thank you to those of you who are here in person. You are rewarded by getting to enjoy a reception on the terrace, the chance for more conversation with our two incredible speakers. Please, have some books signed. Say in person how meaningful they are to you. They're certainly meaningful to me. Thank you all so much, and please join us for the next week while we still have this fantastic exhibition on view. Thanks.